Well, this is not the first thing I've won. A couple years ago, I signed up for a drawing with Prairie Public. They had free passes to an exhibit in Winnipeg, and I won some passes, and both my daughters were able to come. So we sped to Winnipeg on a Friday, rushed to the hotel, which I chose because it was so close to the exhibit, and I wanted to set the car down, run to the exhibit, and come back. It took a little longer to get registered at the hotel than I had hoped, because the clerk said, well, you don't have a reservation for October 22nd, 2010. Your reservation is for October 22nd, 2011. And that, so she didn't think she could help me, and I was pretty sure it had been for this year. I mean, it's a detail, but I had thought it was. And then there was a little bit of sighing and a little bit of shrugging, but she decided she'd help us out if she could. And yeah, she could find room for 3 people for 2 nights, and this was the first night, so that was lucky. And then about the parking lot, they advertised free for guests. Well, that was in process. It was there, but there was no way of identifying the cars belonging to guests, but she thought we probably wouldn't be towed. So we ran to the exhibit, which was great, and it stayed open a little later than they'd advertised, so it was fine. We kind of got our free money's worth. And then came back to the hotel, and we were ready for supper. And the restaurant was closed by then, but the bar was open. And, you know, none of us have anything against, I've had lots of lovely meals in, like Vic's bar, so we were going to be happy enough about that. But when we opened the door, it was a huge room, and I don't know what the plural for fracas is, and I don't even think that's how you say it, but they were going on all around this huge room. And one of my daughters particularly doesn't like big, loud bar rooms with fights going on, so we thought, how about we just go to the counter and order something that seems fairly simple, and we'll take it up. And so we got something, and I think it had gravy on it, and we took it up to our room. And it was pretty peaceful. And then we went to bed, and a couple of hours later there was thumping at the door and somebody yelling, "Evie, Evie!" And this kind of alarmed us, and so we tried to convey without actually opening the door that none of us was called Evie. And then it reminded me of something, and I didn't mention this to you, nor had I mentioned it to my daughters for even a better reason. When I had booked the room, of course I read the reviews, and there were quite a few of them, and they were all bad. And there were quite a few that referred to ruckuses and disturbances, and the owner had replied to them. And really, to my satisfaction, I kind of thought that this doesn't sound so bad. And it was so close to the exhibit. So I thought, well, we have to do. Then he had added, after these explanations of why it seemed as it had seemed, that nobody had called down to the desk during these so-called disturbances. So I knew we had to call down. So we called down, and I was making my voice as little like Evie as I possibly could. And told them downstairs that there was thumping at our door and somebody was calling us Evie. And so the person at the desk said, "It's all right, security knows, it's in hand, it's already been taken care of, so good." And then we had a fine day the next day. And then the second night, the disturbance in the middle of the night was really kind of alarming. It was a fight going on in the hall, and it was nothing personal. They didn't think we were Evie, but there was bad language, and I think there was pushing and shoving. And so we did call down. I was really alarmed. It was at least the third or fourth scariest time I've had in a hotel. on this continent. So the next morning, signing out, and this is really hard for me, but I thought I just had to speak to the hotel, and I said, oh, and we did call down, and it was lucky because, you know, it was taken care of already. But in the morning, as we were checking out, I told the clerk, you know, this really wasn't satisfactory. There were disturbances both nights. And she said, well, alas, since I booked with Expedia and not with a hotel, there was nothing that the hotel could do about it. But if I went crying to Expedia, they probably would. So later I did, and in due course, or maybe a couple days after that, I got a voucher from Expedia for another night. But I have to tell you that winning to be up here tonight and winning to be at that expo in Winnipeg, they weren't the only things I'd won. Several years before that, I had won a couple free nights in Winnipeg. And that's how I happened to know where this hotel was and how good the location was going to be. Thank you.